If you throw out this high-class terminology, key signature, and I can't find it in the dictionary, could you
I know.
define that? So
Okay, I'll give you another word that you will. Do you read maps? Does everybody here learn anything about reading maps when you were in 4th grade? They have a thing on a map called a legend. What's a legend?
Finds what the symbols are.
It tells us, it's also, there's another word for the word legend. It's called the key. Both of those words. The legend is a little area on the map that defines the symbols. You're right. And it says 1 inch equals 100 miles. So it gives us a scale, scaling, and then it said these wiggly lines are railroad tracks. These dashed lines are plumbing, water mains, etc. And they show all the symbols that are used in the map. By the way, whenever you have a map, the point of the map is to find the buried treasure. Isn't it? It's to say there's a point somewhere on the map which we can mark with an X, and we say that's where the treasure's buried. And the whole reason we read the map is so we can walk around this terrain looking at these symbols and find out where that damn X is. That's what a key signature does. All a key signature is, it's a legend for the staff, and all it does is tell us which line or which space this whole process starts on. That's all its job is. Now once it's done that job, I'm over it. I don't want to have a system where I have to carry it around all day long like a ball and chain, worrying about, and I have to tell you, the more pot I smoke and the more I destroy my short-term memory, the harder it is to hold 7 flats in my head. I can't do it. You wonder, how can someone like, Coltrane shoot heroin, then go out and play a song that's got 7 sharps in it? I'll tell you, he didn't give a damn about those 7 sharps. He was playing, he figured out where 1 was, and then he used his ear and his feelings to just go with it. And even he talks about a revelation he had one day when he realized that all he had to do was play on the first beat of each measure a good note that was in the chord, and everything else was up for grabs. That was one of his great revelations. And he came into the studio one night and started playing, and people heard a completely different person. He literally overnight, by having that simple idea, went into chromaticism and was able to go way out and get strange harmonies and play all kinds of weird scales because he didn't feel trapped by the writing anymore. He was free. He knew that only on the first beat of each measure he had to hit a good note that was in the chord, and the whole rest of the measure belonged to him. He could do whatever he wanted. You see what I'm getting at? And so that gave him a freedom that he never had before, and he was able to express. And that's what I'm trying to show you here. There's actually a formula behind all this stuff. And here's the thing, once you learn this formula and how this works, if you go and look at the ABCs, you'll understand it in a new light, it'll be easier to understand, and you can spell things correctly 100% of the time always. You can always get your spelling right. One of the biggest problems in college is when people take these little spelling tests, they get a lot wrong. And if you can get a 60 to a 70%, they consider that passing. But I found after I had learned this method and then went back and looked at the ABC method, I had found short forms for doing the ABC method that made it so easy that now I can take those spelling tests in any college, anywhere, and get 100 on it every time. As a matter of fact, that happened to me in college. I took the test. I used to always get 40s and 50s. I told you this a couple of months ago. I used to get 40s and 50s, and then I came up with this idea. Invented a thing I call the intervalometer, this slider that I have on my website that fits behind the keys on your keyboard. So just a little piece of, just a little strip of paper that has the numbers 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 on them that fit on your keyboard behind the black keys, and then you can just slide it around into any key you want and then play by number. And once I learned how to use that and got it in my head, I went back, took those tests and got 100. And then I took another test and got 100. And the teacher and the dean of the school accused me of cheating. They said that I was cheating. They wanted to know where I stole the test from. I got the answers and memorized them. And so I challenged them. I said, okay, here's what I'll do. put me in any room, surround me by as many teachers you want, make the test as hard as possible, I'll take the test right in front of you, grade it, and if I get 99.9, fail me. But if I get 100, shut up and realize that I've figured out something that you ought to learn. Took the test, was surrounded by 3 teachers, took the test, got 100, and they still didn't believe me. They still insisted that I cheated. So when I told them that I had figured out a formula that generated all this stuff so I could use it to check and double check my answers that always gave me the right answer, they were upset. And you know what? Those teachers never bothered to find out how my method worked. They just like a lot of other people just criticize me and say, I must be cheap. It can't be done, therefore I must be cheating, ergo, I'm a liar and a cat, and they're right. Well, they're just traditionalists who are keepers of the torch that are afraid of any kind of change. This is an innovative change. So let's get back to this. You can see, well, now look, the next thing is, the next one is going to wind up here on this space. And then if I put a ledger line above that, then this becomes 2, and then the space above that becomes 3, and you can see here a pattern starts to evolve. Look at the pattern. 1, 3, 5, 7. 1, 3, 5, 7. And the spaces are 2, 4, 6, 1, 2, 4, 6, 1. So it turns out this pattern of every other number is happening everywhere, all over the place, and it labels all the lines, it labels all the spaces, doesn't matter what clef we're in, doesn't matter what range or where we are, this thing works everywhere equally. So once you got this in your head, and the most important thing is, I used to actually meditate. I took a ball, round ball, and wrote the numbers around the equator, tied it on a string, hung it up, rotated it, and I'd sit there and I'd say the numbers. 1, 3, 5, 7, 2, 4, 6, 1, 3, 5, 7, 2, 4, 6, 1, 3, 5, 7, 2, 4, 6, 1, 3, 5, 7, then I'd turn around and go 5, 3, 1, 6, 4, 2, 4, 2, 7, 5, 3, 1, 6, 4, 2, 7, 1, 3, 1, 2. And as the ball rotated backwards, I had to do this thing in the opposite direction. And that's the part you really have to study. If you're going to study something, if you're going to learn anything about this method, sit down and meditate on this as your mandala and learn to say it backwards, starting from 7, 5, 3, 1, 6, 4, 2, 7. Or start here, 4, 2, 7, 5, 3, 1, 6, 4. And you'll find out just that one exercise is all you need to do to conquer this whole system. It's all about this pattern. Okay? So, once I find out, for instance, that I want this line to be my 1, then I can label all the lines. 1, 3, 5, 7, 2, 4, 6, 1. No matter how many lines we extend, the pattern will continue. And going backwards from 1, this space, this line here would be a 6. If I put another line below that, that line below that would be a 4. If I put another 2 ledger lines below, that would be a 2, etc., etc., etc. And you can see that I can label all the lines and extend the lines up or down as far as I want using this wheel. So that's the first stop on this train. Okay? Now, it just happens that the spaces wind up being the same pattern. For instance, here between 4 and 2, we know is the number 3, right? So then right here, this should be the number 5, that should be the number 7, and that should be the number 2, and that should be the number 4, and that should be the number 6, and that should be the number 1, and then this space here should be the number 3, and then the next space should be the number 5, etc., etc., etc. And you will notice that the same pattern, either all the lines or all the spaces, is being generated all the time. This is probably the most crucial condensation of music theory I came across in my entire life. When I came up with that, it was a real acid aha moment. It was almost like an angel said, "Here's the secret decoder ring. If you use this, you learn it all." And And it did. Surprisingly did. That is everything in music theory.